Welcome everybody, welcome all our Torah Anytime viewers, and again a special thank you for everyone here who made it out in this blizzard of, what was it, I guess the 2018 blizzard. We'll see, hopefully this will be the 2018 blizzard and we can move on with this. So today we are beginning a new series, a very, very important series. I cannot stress the importance of this. This is we're going to be dealing with this in it's going to be like one large series, but it's going to be a few mini-series within this large series. So the first thing that we're going to try to tackle is, can we prove that God exists? The reason why this is so important is that I have many people that come over to me and they'll be like, I don't believe in the Torah. The rabbis made it up. You know, and all different sort of things like this. Is this from the part of the Ten Commandments? Is this part of this? They break it down. So the first thing before you can even deal with any of that, and the way my method is I ask them, okay, let's take a step back over here. Do you believe in God? Because that's the first thing. If you don't believe in God, then the Torah is irrelevant. The rabbis are irrelevant. Everything is irrelevant. So the first step is, do you believe in God? Once we can believe in God, then we can move on and prove the Torah. But right now, the focus is to see if we can prove that there is a God. The idea behind these classes is not only to give you such a strong understanding that there is a creator without a benefit of your doubt, but rather also to give you the abilities to also be able to do this to other people, to be able to go and convince other people of this, that there is a God. Now the reason why, the way I'm going to present this, B'ezrat Hashem, is first I'm going to give you a few classes on proving that there's a God. Then there's going to be classes proving that the Torah is real. And after that, we're going to sort of summarize it in layman's terms and how to use it in practical, you know, back and forth conversation. So, as we begin, we first have to figure out, is it possible to prove God? When you think of God, God is not a physical being. So how can we prove something? We're physical beings. How can we prove something that's not physical? So this will inhibit our direct proof. We will not be able to directly prove God. I could prove to you that this remote exists because you see it, I'm holding it, you can touch it, your senses are able to deal with this. There is a different method. There's an indirect proof, which is the method that we're going to go and try to uncover and try to see if we can prove that God exists. Now, if you were going to say, well, okay, indirect proof is nice, but I need absolute proof. I want absolute proof. So when you look at our day-to-day lives, nothing, and almost nothing that we do is with absolute proof. I'll give you an example. When you go into a car, do you know with 100% certainty that you will reach your destination? You don't know. Maybe there's going to be a flat tire, God forbid there could be an accident, God forbid there could be so many other different things that can happen. You get a phone call and you have to turn around. You don't know for certain if you go and you're about to eat a certain food. Not sushi, because the sushi is great, I'm sorry. But let's say you're about to eat pizza. Do you know for certain that this pizza is not going to give you food poisoning? You don't know for certain. I mean, you're hoping that it won't, but you don't know with absolute proof that it won't give you any food poisoning. You have a chatan and kala, they're getting married. Do they know for certain this marriage is going to last? Let's say hopefully they didn't look at statistics and see what is actually going on there. But do they know? They hope that it will last, but they don't know for certain. So we see our day-to-day decisions. You go to anything, taking a medication. You're taking a medication. Do you know that this medication is going to do better good for you than worse harm? You don't know what the outcomes of these things that could happen, but yet we take it. So now why do we take it? There's something called probability. And this is how we make our decision based. It's based off one of two factors. Number one is the probability. What is the probability of this happening, of the bad versus the good? So, and we'll choose the probability with the greater chance of achieving our desired outcomes. There is that aspect of it, and there's also another aspect on the severity of the consequences. So let me give you an example into play. Let's say somebody is driving, and they have two ways to get to their destination. If they go down one road, they'll get there an hour shorter, but there's a 20% chance that they are going to come out of that after they leave this road. They're not going to have tires. Their glasses are going to be broken. They are going to be, chance of survival is 80%. We'll do a bit of that. The other is 99%. What is the chances that they're going to take the 20% versus the 99%? Everybody's going to, in the right state of mind, will go on the safer option rather than going on something, even if it's going to save you time. It's just not worth it. Why? Because of the severity of it. The severity is losing your tires, getting hurt, damaging your car. It's just not worth it. But let's use the same numbers in a different scenario. Let's say you want to go to the park. And if you go to the park, you're going to get beaten up by mosquitoes. And if you go to the park and let's say you really want to go to the park, And you know it's even a 50% chance you get bitten by the mosquitoes. If you really want to go, you'll go. Why? Because the consequences doesn't mean as much as me losing my car versus getting a few mosquito bites. So the idea over here is when we look at it, we have to see what is the probability of God existing, and also what is the severity of the consequences if we don't believe in God. Does this make sense so far? Is this clear? Okay, good. I will say that a few times throughout this class, B'ezrat Hashem, because there's going to be a lot of scientific information that I will present today. It will almost feel as if you are learning science, and it sort of is. But I'm going to try to do it in a very simple to understand manner, because it's very important to understand this. One of the reasons why we're going to go into such detail, especially when we speak about the Big Bang, is that when people go, I have these conversations a lot with people, atheists, and I do air quotes when I say atheists, and you'll soon see why. They'll throw out things, well, God doesn't exist. And they'll throw out things like the Big Bang. And I'm like, do you know what the Big Bang is? And they're like, yeah, it was a huge explosion, and that's how the world came into being. I'm like, you're already wrong. Because according to the science, it's not even talking about a large explosion. It's talking about an expansion. So by you understanding where they're coming from, you'll even know how to answer them before even the question arises. Because most of them don't even know what they're talking about. But there's some that do, and this is what we're going to go through. So now, the holy rabbi by the name of Reb Chaim Shmulevitz said that deciding if you will believe in God is the most important decision you will ever make in your life. The most important, because this is going to factor in how you will live your life. So this comes to play a very, very important factor. If you believe in God, then, okay, then there's, well, as we see as we go on in the series, there are different things like why would God create the world? What is the purpose of creation? There's different things that come into play. So when this comes up, your life that you will live in this world is going to be completely different as if you don't believe in God. So this is a very, very important thing, and it should not be taken lightly. And in fact, I'm going to tell you, forget about everything that you were raised. Forget about everything that you were born with. Even if you believed it or you didn't believe it, the way that we're going to do it, B'ezrat Hashem, is going to give you such confidence that God exists that there's going to be no other way to believe it rather than saying that there's 100% understanding and confidence that I believe that God exists. Believe is not a word, that I know that God exists. So, moving along, question is why isn't God more visible? Why isn't God more easily known to man? God is hidden, a spiritual entity. Why can't we see Him, this being that created us? Why can't we see Him? Why can't we see Him in the physical aspects of it? So when we look at human beings, we know that we are limited in our abilities, because we are limited in our number of sensations. To give you an example, if I were to say to the majority of people to do this multiplication in a few seconds, let's see how many people are going to be able to do it without even writing anything down. 967 times 498. I'm multiplying two 3-digit numbers. Not a crazy, crazy thing. How many people are going to be able to do it? There are some people that are going to be able to do it. Majority of human beings are not going to be able to do it in a matter of seconds. You give them a minute or two, they'll be able to do it. So the question that arises from this and really brings us into consideration is if we have a hard time making a simple calculation in a matter of seconds, then what makes us think that we will be able to understand God, this spiritual being, this all-powerful being that we don't understand in our physical terms. So when we want to understand God, be like, you don't even understand this world. We don't understand this world. You want to understand God? So there's an idea of understanding God, and there's an idea of knowing that God exists. Our focus is going to be, do you know and can you know that God exists? So we will look at, this is very, very important. I came in here and there was a table set up here full of food. Now, is it possible that, the mafia broke in here right before everybody came, they heard that there's going to be a class and they're so smart, they'll be like, you know what, that's so nice. They'll be like, you know what, it's so nice, we'll do something nice about it. And they come in, they broke in, and they set everything up, they closed the lights, they came and they left, and they turned on the heat, and because we don't know how the heat turned on, right? Maybe it was the mafia. So they came in here, they turned it on, and they put everything nicely, and then they left. Is that a possibility?
Yes.
It's a possibility, right? Now, is it the most probable reason? No. So there's a difference between the possible answer to things and a probable answer to things. What we want to look for, and this is very important, today we're going to look for the probable answer for things, not the possible answer for things. Possible answers for things could be anything. I can make it up out of the blue, 1,000 different possible answers. But we're going to be looking for the most probable answers. Okay. So almost finished the introduction, and then we can begin. Almost finished. There's another aspect that we do need to discuss, and that is the aspect of emotions. There are some people that emotionally won't allow them to believe in God. Their emotions doesn't allow it. I once had an argument. I was once giving a class. It was a nice amount of people in the class, and there was one guy who stood up there more or less in the beginning of the class and started asking questions. From the questions I could see that he didn't believe in God, didn't believe in Torah, there was some thing. So I asked him straight out, do you believe in it? And he replied in the negative. So for the next hour and a half to 2 hours, the whole class, everything that I prepared, put on the side, and it was one-on-one, back and forth, with everybody listening, on proving, is there a God, is there a Torah? I did this multiple times. Is there a God, is there a Torah, because I feel this is the most important thing. If you don't get this, what is the point of anything else? I may have given him maybe about 15 to 20 proofs about God, Torah, the oral law, the rabbis, everything, the whole package. After we finished the 1.5 hours, so it was probably closer to 2 hours conversation, or you could say argument, he comes over to me and he's like, in front of everybody, he says, you see, I won the argument. So I replied back to him, I'm like, in an argument there's never winners or losers. There's always losers in an argument. But if you really think that you won, let's ask the audience, right? We have here a nice audience, let's ask. And I say by raise of hands, how many people think that this person won the argument? No one raised their hands. And then I said, by raise of hands, how many people think that I won the argument? And again, it's not me, it's just the responses that I gave. And majority of people raised their hands. Of course, there's always people that never raise their hands for anything. There's people that never raise their hand for anything, and then there's people that raise their hands for every answer. How many people believe no? How many people believe yes? They just want to be right. I don't want to, I'm not taking any chances. So I go to him, I'm like, you see? And then, as a follow-up to that, I said, let's go over a brief overview, and I did all the highlights of all the proofs that I gave him. I'm like, you believe in this for this reason, this reason, this reason. I gave him one after another, proving God, proving the Torah, all the aspects, which we'll go through the majority of those things in these coming up classes with Ezrat Hashem. And one by one, he was like, okay, I have to get back to you on that. I am not sure on that. I'm like, you never answer me on this. You never answer me. He's like, okay. I have to get back to you on some other things. And he actually did get back to me on a few things. All was nonsense and irrelevant, but he actually did look into it. It turns out that this guy later ended up coming to almost every single one of my classes for a long period of time. First one to come, last one to leave. And
is he religious now?
What?
Is he religious?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes. So, Baruch Hashem. So, but what is the reason that after this whole argument, that it was very obvious to everybody else that the proofs were there? It's there. The science is there. How come he couldn't see it? And the answer is because of his emotions. He did not emotionally want to believe in it. He didn't emotionally, whatever he went up his upbringing, whatever the background situation was, he didn't want to believe in it. Now, when you're dealing with emotions, logic doesn't come into play. You can't deal with logic when emotions come into play. That's why I say it's very important whenever let's say you're dating somebody, it's always very, very important that when you're making a decision, it has to be with logic. It also has to be with emotions, but number one has to be with logic. So the idea for that is put your emotions on the side, whoever doesn't believe in God, whoever does that, and let's see really where the science points into. And in fact, those type of people that have such a strong emotional attraction to not believing in God, God could come to them while they're awake and be like, hey, I'm God, and watch this miracle. And watch this miracle. You know what they're going to say? I was hallucinating, someone gave me some shrooms about a week ago, it only took effect now, and then they're going to say this was really a natural disaster. There's excuses for everything. The excuses for the 10 plagues, the excuses for that, for all these things. There are people that document that say, oh no, there was a natural disaster. The Jews happened to be in the right place at the right time, and that's right. I mean, come on. All right, how much do you need to smack in your face until you be like, okay, I see it? The question also arises is, what is the purpose of all this? Do we actually need to believe in God? Is there a purpose? Is there a need? So without God, if you think about it, without God, without the Torah, there is no purpose to the world. It's a free-running world. You do whatever you want after, 100 and whatever, however, atheists believe they live for, and they go and they die. And what happens after that? Nothingness. That is such a depressing thing to think of. And by the way, there are people that don't believe in God and don't believe in anything. They could still be good people. They could still abide by moral and ethical laws, but they're doing everything for no purpose. There's no purpose. And even more so is any happiness that they feel, it's all short-lived, because soon it's going to be over, soon it's going to be done, and that's it. It's such a depressing way to live your life. It's everything good is only momentarily, and it's only soon vanishing. Now, if you're living for a purpose, that even, by the way, even if it's for a fake purpose, you could think of any religion, you could believe in aliens. Like after you die over here, you get beamed up by aliens and you party like it's 1999 and you know, it's just like great with the aliens. But there's a purpose. All you have to do is wear tennis shoes. I don't know if you guys get that joke. Okay, so
I'm going to laugh anyway.
So, okay. There was, never mind, let's not get into it. So, maybe afterwards. Yeah, okay. It was a cult. Anyways, so the idea is that if you live for a purpose, your life on this world is already more enjoyable, more purposeful, and more fulfilling. The idea is, think of it like this. There's a guy in prison and for 25 years. And what he had to do for 25 years is he had very hard work. He had to pull levers, he had to turn a wheel, he had to do a lot of manual labor. And he's thinking, he's like, you know what, this is like, who knows what I'm doing. I'm probably like giving enough electricity for an entire, you know, country over here from all the work that I'm doing. After he gets out, he gets freed from prison. After 25 years, he goes to the guard and is like, do me a favor, you know, I've been pushing all these levers, all these buttons, I'm turning this huge wheel behind. What's behind this wall? Can I see what's behind this wall? The guard says, yeah, sure, I'll take you there. And he goes to behind the wall, and it's nothing. He's just turning a lever, pushing buttons. There's nothing doing on behind the wall. It's not attached to anything, and he falls into depression. And the guard says, I don't understand why you're depressed. You're freed. You go on to live your life. And he says, you don't understand. He says, for the past 25 years, I thought I was doing something. He says, I didn't realize I was turning a wheel, nothing was happening on the other side. He said, why'd you make me do this? He said, I wasted 25 years doing nothing. He says, listen, you know, if you're bored, you cause problems. Here, you keep you busy, you know, make you run on the wheel. So if you're doing something without any purpose, without any fulfillment, it's very depressing. You don't live a fulfilling life. So that is why you need to believe in God. So now there are three possibilities in the realm of believing in God or not believing in God. Number one is believing in God. Number two is something called agnostic. Agnostic means that you view the existence of God as unknown or unknowable. I don't know. He could exist, he could not exist. Who knows? There's a third option called atheism. Atheism means for sure God doesn't exist. Out of the three, the third, which is atheism, is irrational. It's irrational and it's borderlining on moronic. And I'm using harsh terms for a specific reason. When you look at, you know, just think about being rational for a second. To know for certainty that God does not exist, let's even back enough. To know for certainty that something does not exist, anything does not exist, you have to know everything that does exist. Because how can you say this doesn't exist if you don't know everything else that exists? Can you say, let's say I say there's an insect with 3 feet on the bottom, 3 feet on the top, like feet on all angles. That's all it has, an insect with 3 feet. You say, no such thing, it doesn't exist. How do you know? Do you know all insects? Maybe it does exist. How do you know that it does exist? To say that God does not exist means that you need to know everything that does exist. Do you know everything that exists? No, you don't know everything that exists. So how can you say, with a straight mind, that God does not exist, and being an atheist, without knowing everything that does exist? You know, well, many people make themselves fools. When now President Donald Trump, when Donald Trump was running for president, there was a large amount of people that came out, celebrities, you're talking about like politicians, I don't know what they're called, news broadcasters, anchors, that said, thank you, that said that Donald Trump will never be president. And they said it with such arrogance, such gahava, such, you know, confidence. They'll be like, look at me. No, Donald Trump will never be president. Said in the camera with such like, ever. And this was included, President, ex-president, old President Barack Obama. Yeah, Allah shalom, right? So you have this, yeah, kaviyachol. They have it with such. Now, what happens when President Donald Trump became president? How much of these people get embarrassed? These people who happen to know all about politics, who know they're like these are the celebrities of everything I have to do, and they were so wrong, like with such confidence. You know how embarrassing that is? What is the busha that they had to go to? The embarrassment that they had to go to. Imagine someone lives their life, there's no such thing as God. I've had conversations with people that are atheists. They're not really atheists, they think they're atheists. But they're really like, there's no such thing as God. What happens after 120? Like after 120, you're going to get up there, you're going to look around, and you're like, oh, huh. Yeah. I guess I was wrong. Oh, oops, you can't. There's no oops after that. Like that, according to the Rambam, you lose your share to the world to come. There's no like, there's no like, oh yeah, all right, you got me. Like, I'm sorry. I just, messed it up. I didn't realize. I don't know. That is a big boo-boo to make, saying that living your life that God doesn't exist, when it turns out, like, oh, look at that, God does exist. So there are, when dealing with atheists, you have to know that there's a few things. Number one, when I said before, many atheists don't know that they're atheists, because many atheists happen to be agnostics. Agnostic means I'm not sure. Because I tell them, I'm like, they describe them as, hi, I'm an atheist, like, hi everybody, he's an atheist, atheist AA, atheist anonymous. So they go in claiming that they're atheist. And I say, I'm like, is there like a 5% chance that God exists? And they're like, 5%? All right, fine, 5%. I'm like, so you know what you identify yourself, right? If you're checking off, when they ask you in many legal papers what race you are in, if you have to go to somebody else and be like, hey, what do I look like? Am I Asian style? Am I Caucasian? And you should know what you identify yourself with. I don't want to get to transgender right now because I'll be in it for a long time, but you have to know how you identify yourself. Regardless of what you have to know, if you're identifying yourself as an atheist, do you know what an atheist is? So you're not an atheist, you're an agnostic. At least we already moved up in life. Now you have a doubt maybe that God exists. So most atheists happen to be they're agnostics. The other people that are atheists, they're atheists because they're rebelling. It's an emotional attack against God. Why? It could be, I don't know, why did bad things happen to good people? And well, hopefully we'll deal with it. We spoke about this in previous classes. But what type of God is there if there is constantly bad happening to good people and constantly good things happening to bad people? So these are all reasons, excuses, emotions that come into play. But let's look at facts. Let's look at facts. That was the introduction. Now we can begin. Okay. So now let's try to begin with the Big Bang. I'm going to try to explain the Big Bang Theory. And then once we explain it, we can see where it leads to. Does it lead to God, or does it lead to the fact that there is no God? So the Big Bang Theory is an effort to explain what happened at the very beginning of our universe. Now, recent discoveries in astronomy and physics, they show beyond reasonable doubt that our universe, in fact, had a beginning. So before the beginning, during the beginning, that's what the Big Bang is trying to explain. Now, bear with me for the next 35 seconds, because things might sound foreign, but bear with me. The standard theory of the Big Bang Theory, they base something called singularity. Singularity, if you ask them, no one knows what singularity is. But it's called singularity, and you'll soon see why. What they say is that this singularity is something that defies our current understanding of physics. It is thought to exist in the core of black holes, which in black holes are this areas of intense gravitational pressure. It's so much gravity in there that if you would put a finite matter in it, it would actually squish, it would actually dense into infinite density. Now, what it means is that it would take something and it would combine it into such compact matter that we can't even understand it. They say this is how our universe began. Our universe began very, very compact. All matter that we know was all in one singularity. It was all in one single piece of matter, and it was very hot, and it was very small, and it was very, very dense. Now, where did it come from? How did it come from? Where did it go? Cotton Eye Joe? No one knows. No one knows these. No one knows these answers. But this is how they explain it. So, what happened is that this infinite dense matter started to inflate. It sort of expanded. A very big misconception about the Big Bang Theory is that there was an explosion. According to science, according to the majority of the scientists, the common theory now is there was no explosion. It was just an expansion and then a cooling off, and that's where we are today is because of this expansion.
The world was created like that, or the universe? The
universe, the entire observable known universe. So, is there proof for the Big Bang? A lot of this is based off of, Rabbi Lawrence Kelvin did phenomenal research on this, and I want to share with you some of his data that he presented. There was a man by the name of Vesto Slipher. In 1913, he discovered that a group of stars were moving away from Earth at about 700,000 miles per hour. And when he started searching other galaxies, he saw the same thing, that all the galaxies seemed to be moving away from Earth. And at that same time, Einstein was formulating his theory of relativity. And his theory had a few glitches. And in fact, a Danish mathematician by the name of William D. Sitter was one of the few that he actually detected these glitches. And he told Einstein, and he said, listen, he said the only way that this theory of relativity would work is only if the entire universe is exploding, is expanding from all directions from a central point. Then in 1922, that was in 1913, in 1922, a Soviet mathematician by the name of Alexander Friedmann independently derived a de Sitter solution. The same solution that with the explosion, with the moving of the stars, of the galaxies. But due to the fact that it was World War I at the time, neither de Sitter, no Friedmann, they knew that Vesto Slipher was identifying these things. So they knew that in order for Einstein's theory of relativity to work, this had to be happening. The entire universe had to be expanding. But they didn't know that it existed. They didn't know that this evidence was found already due to the World War I. Now, when Einstein was heard of this idea, he was very disturbed by this. He was very disturbed at the fact that the universe is expanding. Why was he disturbed by it? Because if the universe is expanding, that means the universe had a beginning. Now, if Einstein didn't believe originally in this theory, what did he believe in? How did the people used to believe? How did the world come into being? If you go, so there's three theories that we're going to discuss on how the universe, came into being. And better yet, not came into being, but how is the universe in its state? There is one, the first one, is something called a static universe, or a steady state. This means the universe is stationary. Which means it always was and it always will be as is. It just is as it is right now. This theory could say that there is no God. There could be a God, there could not be a God. It always was here. It always was here for billions and billions and trillions and an infinite amount of time. It always was and it always will be. Could be there was a God, could be there wasn't a God. This was the very most common theory that all the philosophers, the ancient scientists, the physicists, this is what they believed in. Even from the days of the ancient Greek philosophers. The proof for this was, look at the constellations. The constellations, have they been changing in the past 1,000 years? We see them in the same spot, more or less. So which means is that being that we see the stars in the same, more or less same spot, that means the universe existed for the same amount for all eternity. Dr. Gerald Schroeder points out that as of 1959, pretty recent, as of 1959, 2/3 of US astronomers and physicists believed in this theory. They believed that the universe had no beginning. It always was and it always will be. However, in the recent years, there was a traumatic turnaround that all of a sudden the majority of the scientists, the physicists, anybody that delves in this study saw and came to the conclusion that the universe had to have a beginning. That was theory number one. Theory number one is the universe always was. Then there's theory number two. Theory number two is called the oscillating universe, or the cosmic balloon. This theory says that the universe expands and then implodes. So it explodes and then implodes upon itself. And it does this again and again. Now, how would this work? So we know that there's something called gravity. The gravity depends on mass. So if your body would be living in, let's say, for example, Jupiter, then your weight is going to be significantly greater because Jupiter is much bigger, which we'll soon see. If you are in the moon, your weight is gravity is much lighter and lower. This is why if you really want to go on a diet, no need to eat anything. Just travel to the moon and weigh yourself there and then come back because you'll be significantly lighter. So there's something called the gravitational attraction. So something that is larger in mass has a greater gravitational attraction. That's where they make yo mama jokes. I remember this from growing up. It's like, your mama is so fat or whatever, so big that she has she has people orbiting around her, because what happens is when you have a large mass, then it attracts not just cake, it attracts being. I'm talking about large masses, right? Large like planets, stars, things like that. So the way that this theory works is that the world is expanding, the universe is expanding, and being that the expansion eventually is going to slow down, because as time goes on it's going to slow down. And then what happens is there's so many large planets, there's so many large stars that have tremendous gravitational pull. So soon they're going to start pulling other planets towards them, and eventually the pull is going to go so much so that it's going to all collapse upon itself. And that is the implosion. And then when it all collapses upon itself, then it's going to go into a big bang again, and it's going to explode again. So it makes sense. So this could happen, for a long period of time. If for every few billion years it would expand, and then eventually the gravitational pressure, pull will pull it together, and it would, implode again, and then back and forth, until, whenever. Make sense so far? Okay. So, and according to that theory, the universe has, if that's what they believe in, the way that we exist right now, according to this theory, is between there's a big crunch and the Big Bang. We exist between the Big Crunch and the Big Bang. That's when you can exist. Then everything gets destroyed, and then, voila, new world, new universe. That's number 2. Number 3 is something called the open universe. The open universe is a cosmic balloon that never implodes. It never comes crashing down, which means is that it's going to always expand. It will just keep on expanding and keep on growing. So those are the 3. From the third brings to it some questions. That if there's something that is expanding, that means that it was at once, very close together, or very, compact. Then where did this, why did this, matter suddenly decide to expand? There's something called the law of inertia. The law of inertia is an object at rest should remain at rest unless acted upon external force. Easy, very simplified manner. I have this cup of water over here. This cup of water should stay on the table unless it's moved by something else. It could be moved by earthquake. It could be moved by my hand, taking a drink as such. It can be moved by a variety of different reasons, but it will stay at rest unless it's moved. If something's at rest, it has to stay at rest unless something is moving it from an external force. The question is that if all matter was combined in one little space, then why did it suddenly expand? What gave it that thing? Was it a supernatural maybe, or something that's maybe on a spiritual? Where did it come from? How is it possible that matter, that mass, that is all combined into one thing, suddenly just decides to expand? Now, if you want to say that it is unstable, so if it's unstable, you say, listen, it was unstable, and then it came. So who created the matter? Where did the matter come from? It had to come from something. There is a law. Which we'll speak about. What is it called? It's the law of the conservation of mass, if I'm not mistaken. Right? The law of conservation of mass means that mass cannot neither be created nor destroyed. We don't believe in spontaneous, generation of mass. It doesn't work like that. It's against the laws of nature. Where did this mass come from? You're saying that this has to be very clear. If we're dealing with the Big Bang theory, that the world is expanding, where was who created the initial thing? It had to come from somewhere. It couldn't have been there forever, and because there's a beginning. If there's a beginning, so there's a lot of different factors that, according to science, leads to very problematic things. So let's try to figure out, before we're dealing with that, what is the correct method of this? We have 3 options over here. We had a static universe, which is always existing. We had a universe that implodes and explodes, goes in and out. And then we had a thing that's open, that just keeps on growing. So which one is the correct one? In 1925, a person by the name of Edwin Hubble. He was an American astronomer working at the Mount Wilson Observatory in California. He was viewing the largest telescope in the world, and he revealed, similar to Slipher that we mentioned earlier, that every galaxy within 100 million light years, that's a long distance, long trip. Every galaxy with 100 million light years of Earth was receding. Now, Einstein, when he heard about this, he refused to believe in it, and he continued to teach for the next 5 years his theory, which was that the universe always existed, static state. Everything was always as it was, and until Hubble eventually said, "Hey, listen, Alberto, I don't know how you call him." He says, "Why don't you do me a favor? Come down to California, look at it yourself at the evidence. Look at look at it. You don't believe me? Come and look at it." So Einstein went and he traveled from Berlin to where Edwin Hubble was in Pasadena, and he went to examine the evidence. And after the trip finished, after the conclusion of this trip, Einstein reluctantly admitted that the general structure of the universe is not static and it has to be expanding, because that's what that's what it's leaning to. So here we're leaning towards the fact that the universe, the way that we see it, according to scientifically, had to be that it was through the Big Bang, that it was expanding. If the universe indeed was initially very hot and condensed, like we said it, then we should be able to find some remnant of heat existing in the universe. So in 1965, radio astronomers by the name of Arno, Penzias, and Robert Wilson discovered a 2.725 degree Kelvin cosmic microwave background radiation, which is sort of like wherever they pointed their instrument, they found the same sort of background radiation. Which means is that according to science, if the Big Bang actually happened, according to they say, then they should be able to see some sort of remnants of heat. They found it in 1965. So as in 1965, they found it, and it took some time, but in 1978, these two people actually won the Nobel Prize for physics for their discoveries. So now, we know for sure that the static model is not in existence. It doesn't work that way, that the universe always existed. It had to be a beginning. But there's two options. Is it that the universe is always going to expand? Maybe it could still be that it's going to expand and it's going to explode again, and it's going to implode again and expand again. Go close and go out. So far so good? You guys are with me so far, right? Simple? It's pretty clear, right? Okay. So now, we have to determine scientifically if it is possible that the universe would implode upon itself. Now, how are you going to do that? You're going to do that by finding out and figuring out the density of the universe. I'm not going to get into it too much because the time is getting late and I want to move on. But if you want afterwards, we could explain this more. If there is an equivalent of about 1 hydrogen atom per 10 cubic feet of space, then the universe will be able to implode upon itself. That means the universe is dense enough that it will be able to pull the gravitational pressure upon itself, the gravitational pull, and it will eventually pull everything together and explode into itself, implode. However, if the universe contains less than this density, then the gravitational pull is not going to be strong enough, and it will go out at infinity. It will keep on expanding the universe. Between 1965 and 1978, those 12 years, the scientists attempted to determine the average density of the universe. And time in and time again, it came in that it was less than 1 hydrogen atom per 10 cubic feet of space. Which means according to that study, that the universe will never implode upon itself. And in fact, in 1978, Dr. Robert Jastrow, director of National Aeronautics and Space Administrations, came out with an historic announcement. And he said that the total weight of the universe is still more than 10 times too small to bring the expansion to a halt. Which means that the third model is correct. And the crowd went wild. No, I'm kidding. It was a bunch of scientists, so they were probably like, yes, okay. So in any case, they came into the understanding, and this is where the proof leads scientifically, that the world had to have a beginning, and it's continuously expanding. And I want to read to you something from Dr. Stephen Hawking. You guys know Dr. Stephen Hawking?
Yeah.
Fairly famous. Okay. In 1988, Dr. Stephen Hawking, a mathematician and a theoretical physicist at Cambridge University, confirmed the findings of Jastrow. And he said, and he writes like this, I'm going to quote, "Many people do not like the idea that time had a beginning, probably because it smacks of divine intervention. Nonetheless, the present evidence suggests that the universe will probably expand forever." Which means over here that we see from here that the universe had to have a beginning. The reason why this is such a problem to many atheists is that the universe had to have a beginning, it had to have a beginner. It just makes common sense. And the laws of nature, the laws of science, the laws that you so strongly hold by show it that there had to be a beginning, there has to be a creator. Okay, so now there was something very unbelievable article that was written in the time that there was an astronomer by the name of Carl Sagan, that he announced that there are 2 important criteria for a planet to support life. 2, that's what he came out with. This is, you're talking about years ago. Number 1, it has to be a right kind of star. Number 2, the planet has to be a right distance from that star. If you have those 2 criteria, that planet could support life. So we know that there is trillions of galaxies in the universe. You multiply that by the billions of stars in each galaxy, you get to a very large number. Now, if we could figure out roughly how many planets are in the universe, you could say roughly, I'm not talking about specifically planets, not stars. Planets, it's about an octillion planets. Octillion is 1 followed by 27 zeros. Think about that in your bank account for a second. All right? 1 followed by 27 zeros. Now, according to this theory, according to this understanding, that there is 2 criteria that should support life. That means we should have about a septillion, which is 1 followed by 24 zeros, planets of supporting life. That's a lot of planets supporting life, right? That is a lot of planets supporting life. So, with such amazing odds, in the 1960s, there was a search for extraterrestrial intelligence came out. And this was not only private funds, but it was also publicly funded projects. The government actually funded these projects based on these odds, according to the scientifically proven. it seems that there should be tons of extraterrestrial life, because if there's other planets that could support life, that means there's other life in other planets. So let's go and find these other life. So they went and they started searching in 1960s. And they listened with their radio telescopes for signals, anything that's possibly resembled something intelligent. And for years and years they listened, and it came out with a resounding silence. Nothing. Nothing in the universe. And they didn't understand. Why is it, if there's so much chance of there being more life on other planets, where is all the life? Congress, by 1993, defunded this project. They said, you know, we're not paying for this anymore, there's something wrong. Now, why did they defund it? In fact, this project actually continued. It continued through private funds. And as of 2014, a few years ago, you know how many, what the researchers discovered? Absolutely zeroed, followed by many, many more zeros. They found nothing. There's nothing. Now, why? If the numbers make that. They found out that there are far more factors than Sagan originally said in order to support life. And the way that it works mathematically is the number originally said there was 2 factors that you need for a planet to support life. Eventually those 2 turn into 10, and that 10 turned into 20 factors. That 20 factors turn into 50 factors. Now every time that there are more factors that come into play, the probability, statistically speaking, the amount of planets that would support life would go down. Make sense? As okay. So until it hit a point which, as of today, there are more than 200 known parameters for a planet to support life. Now, it's not just like 2 parameters, hit some, make some, that will support life. Every single one of these parameters must be met perfectly, or the whole thing falls apart. So by then, Congress said, but the evidence that we have, we're burning money, like we do many other things. I don't think they said that, but I'm saying that. But that they defunded it. Said it's not worth it to spend money on this, because it's not only it's unlikely to do that. I'll give you even more. For the Earth to exist, you need to have a massive planet like Jupiter nearby. Why do we need Jupiter nearby? Jupiter, we said, is very, very large, and it has a very, very strong gravitational pull. This Jupiter pulls away all the asteroids, all these meteors that go towards Earth. The Jupiter pulls it away from Earth. If Jupiter wouldn't be there, there would be thousands of more of these asteroids that would hit Earth's surface that would be destroyed. So there's so many factors that have to come into play. You know how so many factors? That there are so many factors. You know what are the probability of them of a planet that could support life exists in the universe? 0. Which means there's we shouldn't even exist over here. According to scientifically speaking, probability and statistically speaking, we should not be here. It makes no sense that we're here. There are so many factors that have to come out exactly to the point in order for us to exist. It's like taking a coin and tossing it 10 quintillion times and falling every single time with heads. What are the chances, what are the odds of that actually happening? Fred Hoyle was an astronomer who coined the term the Big Bang. He says like this. He says that his atheism was greatly shaken at these developments. It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. Theoretical physicist Paul Davis. By the way, I'm not bringing you rabbis who are saying that the world, I'm giving you, for a reason these, and I'm telling you who they are. A theoretical physicist by the name of Paul Davis said, the appearance of design is overwhelming. The appearance that the world had a design implies a designer. Oxford professor Dr. John Lennox said that the more, and I'm quote, the more we know about our universe, the more the hypothesis that there is a creator gains in credibility as the best explanation of why we're here. Again, not rabbis. You know what the greatest miracle of all time? The universe. The fact that we exist is the greatest miracle of all time. But let's say, okay, let's speak math. Let's speak a little bit of mathematics. Now, given enough tries over a longer period of time, there must be some sort of probability that something becomes likely. Robert Shapiro, a professor of chemistry at the NYU, at New York University, he studied the odds of winning the lottery. So let's say the odds of winning the lottery could be, let's say, 10 million to 1. But if, let's say, you were to buy a lottery ticket every single day for the next 30,000 years, the chances of you winning would be significantly higher. So what is the numbers that of the universe actually happening? All these parameters for Earth to exist as it exists. Like maybe after billions, trillions, whatever, like Google amount of years, maybe there is a probability. So let's look at it. So physicist Stephen Hawking writes like this. He says monkeys that are hammering away at typewriters, right? They're just like smacking typewriters. Most of what they'll come out will be pure and utterly garbage. So far, I agree with him. But then he says, but very occasionally, and by pure chance, they will type out one of Shakespeare's sonnets, one of Shakespeare's, poems. So, Dr. Gerald Schroeder, he has a book called The Genesis and the Big Bang. Phenomenal. He writes like this. He wanted to calculate the odds of monkeys typing on a typewriter. What are the odds of them producing this sonnet in one of Shakespeare's sonnet? So he took a random sonnet. There are 488 letters in the sonnet. That's not a lot of letters, right? 488. What is the chance of somebody typing in these 488 letters in the right order, in the right time? So he said that the chances of this is, the mathematical probability of this is 1 in 10 to the power of 690. Now, for most of us, it'd be like, cool. What is that number? I don't know. I have a scientific calculator. I just write the arrow up, and whatever number comes out. Is that a big number? So let me explain to you the number. 15 billion years. You know how many seconds are in 15 billion years? It's going to be a lot, right? It's going to be a little bit more than a lot.
Waiting for an answer.
Yeah, it is going to be an answer. In 15 billion years, the amount of seconds that you have in there is going to be 10 to the 18th power. What I said is the chance of monkeys, according to Gerald Schroeder, of them typing these 488 letters is 1 in 10 to the 690th power. You know what the chances of that is? That means that if you take all the monkeys in the world ever existed, throw in every other animal, every other unit, every other being that ever existed, and then make them all type on typewriters randomly, from all the iron, not in the world, in the universe, over a period of time that exceeds their 15 billion years, 20 billion years, the chances that they would come out with a Shakespeare sonnet will be still extremely low. So when you're telling me that the chances of the world coming into creation is like, could be. Really? Really? If I were to show you, and this is Rabbeinu Bachai, it says in the Chovot HaLevavot, in the Duties of the Heart, if you take a piece of paper, and we're not even talking about a painting, take a piece of paper, let's say, and you present this piece of paper to someone and say, like, you like this article? And be like, yeah, it's very intelligent. It says, who wrote it? So funny thing was, I have a bottle of ink, and the ink was on my table, and I was trying to get a piece of napkin cloth under it, and I took it, and the ink spilled, and this is what came out. What would anybody say to that person? Be like, I have somebody that I would like you to meet. He may or may not be wearing a white lab coat, but I still think that you should meet him because it doesn't make any sense. That is, if you go for a painting, right? And you take that painting over there, right? Beautiful painting of flowers and a flower pot, right? What are the chances? I know modern art, this is how it works. You just spill paint on your boat. Wow, what is this? Well, the concept of this is a dot of the universe, an infinite. It means nothing. $10 billion. I'll buy it. Yeah. Okay. Can you please commit suicide, my dear artist, so it'll be worth more. But let's say you take this painting. You take this painting over here. What are the chances that this painting, a simple flower pot that was put into, with flowers, that you just spilled stuff and it just came into it? Very, very unlikely. So to say that the universe came by sheer chance and still be sane, I don't find that you cannot be sane and say the same thing. Like, think of the numbers. Think of the probability. It leads towards one thing. And let's see. Dr. Paul Davis, he says something like this. I'm going to quote. The really amazing thing is not that life on Earth is balanced on a knife edge. He says the entire universe is balanced on a knife edge. And it would be total chaos if anything constant would change off even slightly. To say this all happened by size, which means is the size of the Earth, the location of the Earth, the location of the Sun, the location of Jupiter. There's so many factors that have to come play exactly where it is in order for us to exist. And to say that it all happened by chance, not normal. Really not normal. Dr. Dennis Scania says like this. If you change a little bit of the laws of nature, or you change a little bit of the constants of nature, like changing the charge of electron, we'll soon see what Dr. Stephen Hawking says as well, it is very likely that intelligent life would have not been able to develop. Dr. David Deutsch says like this. If anyone claims not to be surprised by the special features that the universe has, he is hiding his head in the sand. Stephen Hawking, listen to this. He says like this. He says the remarkable fact is that the values of these numbers which is referring to the constants of physics, seem to have been very, very finely adjusted to make possible. And Hawking goes and continues, and he says, if the electrical charge of an electron had been slightly different, stars would have not been able to burn hydrogen and helium, or else they would have not exploded. He says everything had to be in such particular and exact to the dot, to the minuscule electron, had to be exactly what it is. To say that it all happened by chance, possible, but not probable. You know what a probable explanation is? That there was some other being that put it into place. There was something, a design implies a designer. Which means is that if you look at, someone comes over to you and says, and by the way, Stephen Hawking then goes on to say that he can appreciate taking this as a possible evidence. He writes possible. For me, it's not possible, it's probable. Evidence of a divine purpose in creation. I think many people say, I don't know if it's true or not, that he's one of the smartest people, alive. He is, okay. I mean, I have a few people that I would say go, way over him, but whatever. This is not the discussion or the forum for it. But if you think of the way that the universe is, this doesn't show a possible chance of what that happened by just by chance. It shows a probable chance that most likely there is a creator. You want to believe, not realize that you're dealing with emotions, not with logic. People come over to me and they say, in the argument, the Big Bang. Like I come, like, oh yeah, you believe in God? No, I believe in the Big Bang. Do you know the Big Bang? Because the Big Bang points to God. If you look at the Big Bang, there has to be, if you think about it, the laws of nature, there has to be point. Think of it like this. If you're saying there was a beginning, if there's an expansion, that means there has to be a beginning. If there was a beginning, then who created the mass? The mass has to come from somewhere. Right? We know there's law of inertia, the law of conservation of energy, of mass, which means is that mass cannot just be created from nowhere. It has to be created from something. Where did it come from? And if the Big Bang was there, who made it expand? Where did all this information come from? According to science, it points to something supernatural. They don't know the answer is. They might say, okay, listen, we don't know yet, and that's how we're going to find out. As of now, where does it point to? It points to something else. And I'll tell you what it points to. It points to a creator. It points to that. If you look at science, if you look at the way that the way it worked, it's so obvious. We're just scratching the surface. We're going to speak Bezat Hashem about evolution. We're speaking about a lot of other things, important, very interesting things, Bezat Hashem in the coming classes. But we see over here that all this points to one thing, and it points to God. You want to believe not? Like that physicist said, you're putting your hand in the sand. Rephrasing as a little bit. Okay, that was the end of the class. I want to show you some slides, and then we're going to open up to questions. This PowerPoint, but it's it's a shame because the screen doesn't work, so I'm going to have to show you on my laptop. So I'll zoom in a little bit for the people in the audience in the other world, in the virtual world. This is just the Big Bang. This was sort of like a review of what we spoke about. So this is basically the idea of the Big Bang. This is what the singularity. You see, like everything, the mass was everything was created in this little dot, and then it slowly expands. And you see, as it goes on, this is the universe, the galaxies. As it goes on, the universe goes on and expands more and more. Here we see this is actually Edwin Hubble. This is looking through his telescope into finding that the galaxies are actually receding in life. Then we showed that there was some proof. We brought proof that this theory actually seems to be the correct proof. We brought with a cosmic microwave background, with the recession of galaxies, and a few other things as well. Now, this is very important. If the universe has a finite size and a node shape. That's what we know so far. This is the universe summaries. This, by the way, is scientifically. This is not my own theories or understanding of it. So if the universe has a finite size and a known shape, then therefore it must have a finite age. Now they say, okay, there's going to be a certain, and therefore there must have been a beginning. If there's a beginning, we lead to another thing, that there's a creator. And here again we speak about the evidence. We also spoke about the density, that the universe, if it would have been more dense, it could have collapsed upon itself. But we said that it's not. It's not more dense, and hence it's going to expand, forever. Here's the interesting part. So here, if you can see this, this is the size of our planets. So you see little Earth over here. Mm-hmm. This is little Earth going on over here. And as you can see, this is Pluto, and then it goes on, and we'll soon see. You look at Neptune. You look at the sheer difference in size. Look at the difference between Jupiter and Earth. There are 1,321 Earths that could fit inside Jupiter. Imagine the real estate value, right? Okay. So when you, and this is just, this is if you go in there. This is the Earth going to, closer to the sun. This is further away. But you look at over here, you see you have your Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, and then you have Jupiter at the size. Big, right? Jupiter is big. Let's look at it a little bit different. And I'm bringing this for a particular purpose. Here's Earth. You see that little dot? You guys can see it from there? Okay, you see that little dot? That's Earth. This is Jupiter. That's our sun.
Our sun. Because
our sun.
Apparently more than
There are. Yeah. There are 1.3 million Earths that can fit in our sun. The sun's pretty big, right? It's a big place. Not a good place to go, is it? But it's big. Let's go on. This are other stars. That's our sun. You see that little dot that you can't see? That's Jupiter.
What's the biggest one?
That's called Arcturus. Oh, that's not the biggest one. And as we go on, so you look at the difference. This is what exists in the universe. You see the difference in these sizes? You see that little dot? What? Yeah, always, of course. You see that little dot, which you can't really see? That's the sun. This is something called Betelgeuse. It's not like that. The sheer, and by the way, this is not the largest the largest star. The largest star that we know is something called the I think it's called the XY Canis Majoris or something like that. Oh, the VY Canis Majoris. This fits 9.3 billion suns in it. That's how large it is. You know the sheer size of that thing? We can't understand. We said 1.3 million Earths fit inside the sun. 9.3 billion suns fit inside the largest planet. The size of the universe is unbelievable. This is where we see this is our solar system. And you can see the difference. So look at the sun, which is the largest. Look at that. You can barely see it. Most of it is just empty space. When you go on, this is actually the galaxy. This is the Milky Way. Every dot is not a star. It could be actually could be a cluster of stars. But let's go on a little bit further. And here, look. Our solar system in this huge galaxy is that tiny thing. Now we said how big the sun is. You can't even see it when you're looking at the galaxy from the Milky Way from this depth. Just to show you what we're talking about, how vast the universe is according to science. Here you look at this. This is also the Milky Way. The Milky Way, if you want to know the width of it, it's 100,000 light years. That's very far and very big. The approximate location of the sun is like here. You can't even you can't even see it. And the sun is huge. And you can't even see it. That's how large the universe is. And besides that, this is just one galaxy. There's billions of other galaxies in the universe. You're talking about the sheer size that you can't even understand it. The speed of light, if anybody wants, I don't like this. This is 300,000 kilometers per second. We'll speak about it more. The speed of light, we're going to speak about more in evolution. Or the age of universe, we'll speak about more about the speed of light. So we'll get into that. This is something very interesting. If you want to go to the nearest galaxy, it will take you over 2 million light years away in order just to get to the next galaxy. Now, I'm bringing all these things in order to show you the sheer size of the universe. This is the universe, right? So you look at this picture. This picture is the universe. Each point of light is a galaxy supercluster. A supercluster is a group of galaxies. So each light is a group of galaxies. You understand that we can't even comprehend the size of this thing. And this is the observable universe. Now, if I could show you something really cool. Let's see if I'll be able to pull it up over here. It's such a shame that we don't have the large, and then we'll open up the questions. This is something very interesting that I found. And we're not going to go through, we'll do it really quick so we can get to the questions. This is, I apologize for the, I can't, yeah, whatever, okay, I'll pick it up. All right. So, here, look at this thing. So let us start for something like, this is something very, very cool that I found. Okay, this is the size of animals. Okay, not the most modest. Okay, this is the size of the animals. And look at, you see as we go further away, you see the size of the Eiffel Tower. You see this is the largest building, and then you have mountains. These are all relative in size, right? You're going to feel tiny after this, right? No need for diets. Just look at yourself over here and be like, what? I'm tiny. So now, look at this. So as you go further, and I'm having a hard time seeing it. So here we see, what is this? Washington, D.C. in the bottom part of it. Here we have, Israel made it on the map.
Wow.
Look at that. They put Israel over here. And here's Pluto. Pluto is a small planet. And as you go on, and there you see Earth compared to it. Here's Neptune compared to that. You see this? You see the sizes of things? There's Jupiter. Then there's our other stars. And so you can see the sun. You see the sun compared to our Earth. You can't even see it. And as we go on and more, and these are other stars. You can't even see our sun, which is so much bigger than our Earth that when you're looking at our sun, you can't even see our Earth. Just look at the sheer size of things. And as we go on, and we don't have the time, maybe afterwards, and my head's not hurting me so much, as we go further, but just look at how far it goes out. Just look at what we're talking about. And each one, you're talking about galaxies and super galaxies and that. You're talking about something phenomenal. And by the way, what's really cool is if you take this all the way down to the end, it speaks about it not only as that we think of ourselves, but you look at it into, where are we? Into a molecular level. So, and you can, right, and as you go, smaller from like a biology level and you go out, it's something so phenomenal of where we are. So now, why did I, waste my time with this PowerPoint putting together, which really was a waste of time, to be honest. I don't know if it was worth it. You don't know how much time it took me to put that together. Not the last thing, but the PowerPoint, yeah. So, I'll send it to you, no problem. So now, when you realize how tiny we are in existence, how infinitely tiny and nothing we are into existence, and we yet exist in such a understanding that we can only exist only if everything else around us is working exactly the way it is. Which means is that God put everything into place so that we can exist where we exist. A tiny little, and we know that for one person, for doing a good deed, for doing that, it was already worth it for God to create this entire universe. When we look up in the stars, do you ever thankful that, wow, look what God did. Look at the beauty of it. You study a little bit of these astronomy or whatever it is. The sheer amount of stuff that is there is so unbelievable. You come to appreciate it, be like, God, you good. This is cool. This is something that we cannot understand. And we come to think of it like, happened by sheer chance. Are you serious? Are you serious? You must not know it. Because if you know it, I don't see how somebody with common knowledge and common sense, and please, if somebody's out there has answers, I'm always up for other interpretations of things. I would gladly hear. A lot of this thing that we spoke about today was a lot of focus on scientific things. Maybe I got something wrong. I'm open to hear suggestions of anything else. But from my understanding of it and from my studying on it, you don't even need to look any further. You look at the signs, it proves towards God. Any questions? I'm sure there's tons.
Hold on. I wrote one or two.
Yeah.
How do we know about everything past all the planets? Are they actually visible, or are they?
So the way that so if there's going to be a lot of scientific stuff, we'll try to answer it to the best of my knowledge. The way that we know it is through we have besides we have spaceships that take pictures from, and not my phone has a 16 megapixel camera with a low aperture, really good low lighting. You're talking about billion-dollar cameras that are taking these pictures and base it off. I don't know exactly, but they have a bunch of different systems that they go on, and they're able to observe these things, and they're able to see from extremely far distance.
Is there actually a point to all these planets and universes?
We would assume so, but we don't know. Scientifically speaking, we know that our solar system there needs to be the way that it is for us to exist. For many things need to be like the Jupiter. But to say other galaxies and other that, does science need it? There's definitely a reason that God created it. So, God created something for even a reason of just appreciating it is of that. We also know that. Hashem told Avraham that look at the stars, you're going to be like your stars are going to be which is phenomenal, because the stars go on and on for a very long time. There's lots of them.
But we're not many as the stars. We're not
You're saying there's not a lot of Jews?
Yeah, there isn't.
Well, okay. I wasn't sure where you were going with that. That's why I was just finishing for you that thing. Okay.
Alita finished it for me.
It happens to be that unfortunately we should have a lot of Jews, but
I always thought that he was talking to Abraham and saying Abraham's all of his children.
Yeah, very possible. But by the same idea, there should be very, very large amount of Jews. Happens to be we lost a lot. Unfortunately, and we lose a lot to intermarriage. We lose a lot, pogroms, Holocaust. We should be larger than Chinese.
But at least we're still worldwide known. I mean,
Baruch Hashem.
like this small.
We're in the news. You know, they ask people, you know, if you ask some person that doesn't know anything about like that, you ask them how many Jews are there in the world. They're not going to tell you 13 million.
No, yeah.
They're going to be like, I don't know, a billion. They're like, nope, we're like tiny, we're nothing. But like, well, how are you guys always in the news? Be like, oh, we own the. No, I'm kidding. And, because you know, not that we make a lot of noise, but Baruch Hashem, you know, hopefully it should be only good things in the news.
Amen. Seriously, because I've heard really bad stuff. Anyways, if you're an agnostic, do you still have like a share in the world? Because you're sort of believing, but not really.
The Rambam brings down in Hilchot Teshuvah, there are certain people who have no share in the world to come. If one of them is that you have to believe in God, not the negative, it's the positive. Which means that so you need to believe in God. If you say I partially believe in God, just means that you're just uncertain about stuff, uncertain about life. So it really depends on where. There's some people that call themselves agnostic but really believe. They'll pray all of a sudden they're in a certain area, may or not rhyme with Brownsville, and they'll all of a sudden they'll be like, dear God, like please get me out of here alive.
Right. So like if they say they don't believe, but deep inside they do.
So that depends also on their actions or different things. Only God knows. That's not something that we can, answer.
Okay. Is there more atheists nowadays than there was ever before? Because I feel like there is.
I believe so. There is a lot of atheists. You're getting, I think, close to 1 billion atheists in the world.
Cool.
Not uncool. Very uncool.
No, I mean, it's like I don't really
Right.
believe in them. They think they're so cool. And not
Right.
believe in
I happen to think that atheists don't really know that they're atheists. They don't really understand that they're atheists. That's my personal belief. There's some really arrogant atheists that really hold to it, and I don't know how they can believe that. Like uncertainty, yeah. How can you know for certain? I really, it doesn't make sense to me.
Them. Like I feel like
They probably do.
They're lying to themselves.
It's possible.
That's just my opinion.
It's possible. I mean, look, you look at the world. And we're gonna soon see. We're gonna speak about like so many different things. You got to be blind not to see that there's some sort of designer. Yeah.
But for us, are we saying that it's most probable that there's a God, or we're just straight up 100%?
We know 100% that there's a God. You ask me, I know 100%. I don't have a doubt, like maybe. Just the tip of the iceberg of actually seeing that there is a God. Eventually, B'ezrat Hashem, you'll have so much information that you'll be like, without a doubt, but like for sure there's a God.
She just raised her hand.
I have a question.
Okay,
You know
yeah,
how
so-
they always say like the world is billions of years old, and like the galaxies and all the other stars and planets and stuff. How do we understand that based on the fact that like the world is almost 6,000?
We're gonna speak about that.
Is it like during the time that God created the world?
It's a long thing. I'm not sure if I'm going to dedicate a whole class to it or half a class to it. But we're going to speak about the age of universe as well. We're going to speak about evolution, B'ezrat Hashem. The age of universe. How do we consolve things? Oh, I'm telling you, I'm very excited for this series. It's awesome. It's so
I have
awesome.
another question.
Yeah.
Like, you know how we say that God exists without a doubt? How do we know that like Judaism?
That's the second part of the series. Once we go through this, we're going to go and prove the Torah. I'm going to smack it out of the ballpark. We're like, everyone's saying this. Yeah. There's a theory that's saying that God created the world and he just like did it and then he'd be like, okay, next project. Let's work on something else. So we will speak about that in, I'm not sure which class, to show that the fact that God still oversees the world. The simple answer is you look at, the Exodus, and that's what really the purpose of that being, a very big purpose of that was. But we'll speak about it more in depth that shows that not only God created the world, but God continuously runs it. And if we don't speak about it, we should. I really have to write it down to make sure that I do bring that down. But there's many times that we see that it's pretty obvious that someone's not only created the world, but also supervising the world. Any other questions?
Off camera.